Okay, that looks like we are live already. I'm just going to do a couple of little technical things for our setup here before we start, which of course also gives people a chance to actually maybe join us live if they are tuning in. Always great to actually know that there might be some people watching. I'm just going to share this out to somewhere else. Okay. Great. So I think we are almost ready and set to go. Great. So welcome here to this live conversation. My name is Katrin Heuser. I am the director of Little Yoga Space, and I'm here today with Kirsten Wilkinson. I will introduce her in a moment in a little bit more detail and then hand over to her because she'll be able to also put that in much better words. I'm absolutely delighted to be chatting here with Kirsten today about a topic that I actually feel really passionate about and I think is really important, and it's great to bring into awareness and maybe kind of dive into in the way that we can really use yoga to help us deal with the issues of the current times that we might be observing in our own body and mind or emotional world, but also in the way that we are relating with the world around us, in our communities, and ultimately globally. And yeah, I think there's a real power in this practice, and Kirsten's work is dedicated to this, which is extraordinary and amazing. Some of you might remember Kirsten. Kirsten and another colleague of ours, Tiago, and I run a program together, Awakening Resiliency. And so we've known each other for a little while. Love working together. We love every opportunity to talk about this stuff because it's both our passion. And Kirsten is now hosting a few online courses that we are, as Little Yoga Space, very delighted to be supporting and hosting. So that we can broaden and deepen at the same time our offering to everyone at Little Yoga Space and to our community. So very excited to be collaborating with Kirsten on that. And some of you are already doing her Yoga Nidra course that is happening at the moment. So I'm just going to say a little bit about Kirsten, and actually I would like to talk a little bit about the organization that she's the director of, a non-for-profit organization called Legacy Motion, where she's really committed to sustaining the ongoing preservation and documentation of endangered ancient dance forms, as well as promoting resiliency, empowerment, trauma resolution, psychological coexistence, community and peace building through restorative movement-based practices. So this is really how we first actually connected through your work with Legacy Mission and your trauma-informed yoga teacher training courses and other programs that you do. So I would actually love it if you just told us a little bit about the work of Legacy Motion first.
Yeah, thanks, Katrin. I love it. I always love having these conversations with you, and I just love the work that we've been able to do together. So I really appreciate this time with you. So Legacy Motion, the work that we're doing right now is definitely a little bit different than what we were doing pre-COVID. And by that, we originally were collaborating with organizations and going into places where there were populations who didn't have conventional access to mental health care services. And so bringing in alternative mental health care services that are body-based, and also really trying to fill gaps in whatever other ways we can support restoration of trauma and well-being, basically holistic well-being, and whatever that might look like through body-based practices. So that might look like dance, it might look like yoga, it might look like breath work. And that is still our mission. And we still have collaborators around the world who are doing this wonderful work with us. But unfortunately, with COVID, the travel has been a little bit difficult and our programs and projects have shifted a bit. And so this really, really touches upon the challenges of sustainability. And so that's one of our biggest missions, is not only collaboration, but also making sure that our programs and projects are sustainable. Because as much as I would love to be in 50 places at once, because I love traveling, I can't. And so making sure that we really are honoring the practices that are already building and nurturing resilience within the communities that we're serving, but also being able to bring some other tools and methods that might be of assistance, and teaching those people in the community how to actually implement those tools and methods that are body-based, so that then they can create their own programs. They can understand, because they already understand what the communities need. I'm an outsider, so most of the time I go in and have to do a lot of observing and a lot of witnessing and a lot of living and experiencing with the people that I'm working with, because that's just the closest I will ever get, which I will never understand what they're going through, but that's the closest that I'll ever get to actually being able to really see what kind of service we can bring, and what's already present. And then really working through that empowerment, and however that support looks through the organization, whether it be finding funding to continue on some of our programs with our collaborators that are in country, or building new programs, or providing whatever it is we can provide. So that's really what sustainable is meaning at this moment, and hopefully what it'll will continue to mean over time with Legacy Motion. So we have programs in right now in Iraq, in Venezuela, in Colombia, and Honduras. Some really difficult places to get to, but some really, really important places to be. And yeah, so I don't know if that answered your question, or
Yeah, I really just wanted people to get a real feel for the essence of your work and where you're coming from, because I guess what you're now also offering just out to, our community here, and the kind of everyday person is kind of been, it was born from this work in a way, right? So in recognizing that obviously the challenges exist everywhere and all around, but obviously the kind of the origin, or where you're coming from, the core of your work is actually working in those populations that don't have ready access to this kind of support. You were talking about sustainability, and obviously when it comes to these kind of projects, that is hugely important, and amazing that is really the focus. And it just sort of, it's a term that I'm observing a lot more now, also in the context of just yoga in general, like the yoga practice, accessible and sustainable yoga. And so, it's kind of a little bit of a new phrase that's going out there, which I am very excited about. But maybe people don't even have quite a sort of quite clear idea of what that actually means, what the intention behind that is, to make the yoga praxis accessible and sustainable. What's your view on that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I've been hearing this word a lot, especially in practice, right? Within the yoga practice. And I think yoga specifically, and I can speak a little bit towards dance too, these body-based practices that I think in the Western world have sort of evolved from what they originally may have meant, or been how they were meant to be practiced, into a more athletic, possibly exercise-based experience. And is that sustainable and accessible for everybody? I don't think so, but that's my opinion. And so if that is kind of the lens that we're coming from, then how do we actually shift and focus back into that sustainability of the practice, so that it's a lifetime practice? It's not something that we can only do when we're super flexible and super young. It's not something that we can only do, when we're super able, and also maybe cognitively at our height right? We should be able to have access to all of these practices during the span of our lifetime and on this earth during this lifespan. And so I think that that's ultimately for me, really, really getting back down to the root of, yes, not only the physicality and the physical well-being that can come from yoga and these movements and dance, but also how it's really shifting and changing our nervous system, how it's actually supporting our cognitive function, how it's connecting the mind body, and really assisting in continuing those practices that hold on to the essence of how it can continue to be a sustainable practice over a lifetime and over whatever happens in a lifetime as well, right? No matter if we are healthy or sick, or whether we are well-resourced or not well-resourced, right? Being able to really maintain these practices and evolve our practices over time so that it's something that we can continue to do and it can continue to serve us in the best way possible.
Yeah. And so I know that you have set up Healing Motion, a kind of a slightly separate entity that really is the host for you as a teacher and embodiment facilitator, and to do your work on an individual as well as a group basis, a little bit outside of the actual kind of project work that you are doing in those communities that we were talking about of Legacy Motion. So tell me a little bit about how that's kind of really come about. What is your real intention, your deep passion of Healing Motion? What does it stand for?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's kind of funny. It sprung organically this last year. And firstly, it's really become a platform. And I honestly don't know if this was the intention to begin with, but one of the intentions for Healing Motion was to definitely support Legacy Motion. So supporting Legacy Motion through events and other practices that weren't really a part of the Legacy Motion mission. So really being ethical and clear as to what our mission is as a nonprofit, but then trying to figure out ways that we could support this through a business sense of, what can we provide for people who might want to support Legacy Motion, but also want to support themselves, right? So how can we do that in a way that is ethical within the world of the nonprofit sector? So that was sort of the original intention. But really what has happened with this is that it's beginning to become a platform for empowering and also supporting individual practitioners and teachers, which was not exactly what I had in mind, but that's what it's really starting to evolve into, which I am just thrilled about, because all the work I do is collaborative anyway. I love collaborating. So to be able to really find these ways that Healing Motion can support, for example, a studio, or it can support an individual yoga practitioner, teacher, instructor, facilitator that's not attached to a studio, that doesn't have that support network, right? How can we start to find these ways to build community in this really challenging time of business shifting and brick and mortar places closing down, and also supporting brick and mortar places that are still open and being able to do all of those things. So I think that that's kind of what's happening, and also really caring for the individual and being able to do that in a way, like I said, that might not be a part of our greater mission within Legacy Motion, but still be able to do that in some way, shape, or form, and let people find their own practice within what we offer through Healing Motion, while then part of their proceeds supporting Legacy Motion and supporting the community and the whole.
Yeah, so still very much community focused, and this is something that is really sort of standing out to me when it comes to this course that is coming up in this month, on I think it starts on the 10th of March, called Connecting to Compassion. So you and I, in fact, have, like the whole Awakening Resiliency program is, has a strong focus on self-care, and really kind of getting tools to empower yourself, to awaken your innate resiliency, etc., with also an anchor on how that will support us supporting the community. But the main focus is still on kind of the self-love and the self-care. Whereas this course, the Connecting to Compassion, yes, obviously it starts with self-compassion, and it's going to help you where you are at at that moment in time. However, it's also that focus on, if you're struggling with the way that you're relating to the world around you right now, because maybe it is actually the world around you right now that is also the stimulus for all of the overwhelm and the anxiety and so on. So you are not really in true expression with your community, with the people around you, whether they're close to you or complete strangers, doesn't really matter, but just the life and the world that you live in. And you are kind of maybe finding yourself at odds with that at the moment through whatever challenges are rising in you. So I'm finding that is that's really speaking to me, and I think it's so powerful and so important to bring that into the practice, which I think, like you were saying, is coming back to like really maybe the roots of what yoga really means, because it is way more than just that asana on the mat, right? It's really when you go back to the root of it, is a whole lifestyle. It's a philosophy. So tell us a little bit more about that course, Connecting to Compassion, coming up.
Yeah, thanks. I love this class. I love this course, this 6-week course. It really is a journey. And so it's been designed to be a journey from really focusing on self-compassion, and then starting to maybe broaden out in whatever capacity that means for the practitioner, into a little bit more practices that have community compassion that are maybe at the scope of that. And then, depending on the intent of the practitioner, broadening that out even more globally into global compassion. And so really finding these practices across disciplines. So not only yoga, but also a little bit of Qigong, a little bit of affirmation and mantra, a little bit of journaling, a little bit of self-awareness, right? All of these orienting, grounding, centering practices that we can start to cultivate and start to really just explore and be curious about which ones might actually start to shift and change the way that we're feeling about ourselves, right? And how we can support ourselves and sort of maybe stifle that inner critic a little bit and bring up that self-compassion for ourselves. And then how that can ripple out, right? How that ripple effect can happen into our communities and possibly into our globe, with being a little bit more compassionate towards ourselves and others in this really challenging time. And hopefully beyond, right? As we progress and evolve out of what is going on now and what will be evolving and progressing into whatever is happening in the future. And so it's, I really like this series. It's just, I think it flows really nicely. There's a lot to offer in it. There's a lot of bonus material as well, if you're interested, or take the practices for what they are, or leave them and just try them out. So it's a really nice space for curiosity and a little bit of exploration and compassion and what that means to you.
Great. It sounds amazing. So actually, by the way, I should say, anybody watching live, if you have any questions, like, this is your chance. Just pop them into the comments. We'll see them coming through here, and we'll be very happy, and Kirsten will be very happy to answer your questions. So anyone watching live, feel free to just pop a comment below this video and ask us. Or even if you're watching in replay, and we'll see it, we'll get back to it and get back to you. So who is this course for? Like, if you're sort of picturing that person that's joining the class, who might this course be? Who might this course be for?
Yeah, that's a good question. I always like to say, like, it's for everybody, and it is for everybody. That inclusivity, right? But really, that's a really good question, because I think that for me, these practices have helped, and I'll speak from my own experience, and I think this might help to form and shape possibly who this might be for, is that I during this time frame over the last year, I really noticed that my inner critic was really, really loud. And it was really difficult for me to have self-compassion for myself in the ways that I was having to shift and change how I was living my life, and what I was going through, and the expectation I had on myself for progress and goal setting and all of these things. And suddenly I realized that that was really rippling out into my ability to have empathy towards others and patience for other people. And that was not the kind of person that I wanted to become. So I really had to shift. And so I think that that might speak a little bit to who this might be for, is if, if somebody is having difficulty with their inner critic, right? Maybe that part of yourself is becoming really loud. If you're noticing that you have a lot of expectation and judgment on yourself, if you're noticing that you have a lot of expectation and judgment on the world right now, right? Or maybe you're noticing that this is just a space that you might want to explore and see what this really, really means to you. And if you like practicing different types of practices in order to really find a little bit of self-awareness, this can also be a really nice space for that to happen. And so the practices are all mostly gentle practices, no expectation for having to do anything specific. There's always alternatives. It's invitational. So if that's of interest, I think that this might be the course for you.
I'm just wondering, it's like this, this inner critic. I mean, I think most of us have it. And, it's kind of like conditioned into us somehow. But it's also something that maybe we're not always quite ready to admit to, or to deal with it, or maybe even recognize it, or something that we might not even be so aware of, that actually the issue is this constant inner critic. And I love how you were explaining that, how that might manifest, though, that you are observing that maybe you are suddenly just losing your patience with people, or with a situation, that you are in yourself, that you might find yourself. We were chatting a little bit earlier, that what came to me is that you're just somehow feeling slightly at odds with the world around you somehow. Like, it's just not sort of fitting. It's not, it's not flowing. Like, I remember the start of this year was so strange for me. I feel very lucky and privileged that usually I am quite in flow with what happens, and I'm good with dealing with it, because I have that kind of compassion and patience. Well, maybe not patience, but anyway. So I would normally say of myself that I'm quite in flow with life, and it's good, and it's not all happy. It's definitely up and down, but I'm recognizing the flow, and I'm in flow with it, and circumstantial stuff is not challenging me so much. Mm-hmm. Whereas at the beginning of this year, oh my goodness, I mean, there couldn't have been any more annoying nonsense going on in my life. Stuff that I had to deal with, that was stressing me out, that was taking up all of my time, stopping me from what I really wanted to do, from, like fraud being committed on this account that I had, and having to renew a credit card, and not being able to get hold of this organization for something else, and not getting a response from this organization about yet another thing, by having to put this paperwork in place, and then this, and then I'm like, and it was countless. It was like, and I stopped for a moment. I was like, what is going on? Like all of life is deciding to really get very jarry, very, it just, nothing was in flow. And I was like, okay, what's going on? I need to take stock. I need to just take that step back and have a little look at what is going on here. And, it required a whole lot of self-compassion and patience and relaxing into it, and just kind of going, okay, like one thing at a time. It's what it is. Let's deal with it. Let's go back into flow. But it was a real kind of conscious process. So, and again, maybe, also feel really lucky and privileged that I was recognizing that, and kind of had already the tools to help me with that. But I guess maybe that would be showing up for someone who this course might be amazing for, where you just feel like everything is just at odds with you. Like life is just not going in the normal direction that you would, that you're used to. And that is life, right? That kind of happens. But it's usually a sign that something is going on inside of us, that something is being triggered, something is disturbed, that something is bubbling up, whatever it might be.
Yeah, I love that you use that word of flow. Exactly. When things stop flowing, right? It changes. And so it can really change the course of possibly, well, the possibility of where this lifetime can take us. And so being able to get that flow back through these compassionate practices and through compassion towards ourselves and towards others and I found it's a really, for me, over the course of the last year, it's been a really wonderful gateway to find that flow again through these practices.
And also that like real awakening to finding these ways of serving the community ultimately, I think that's really what also comes out of it, really, that, when we are dropping into flow and get back into the flow of things with that compassion for ourselves, then that's only going to also go out to others in the same way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, and that's why I think that this practice really has something for everybody, and this series does, because we may still continue to need to focus on our own self-compassion, right? That might be the capacity that we have at this moment. That might really speak to somebody that decides to join this series. But others might feel that they're pretty, resourced in that way, and they're ready to go ahead and maybe ripple that effect out into the community. And even then others still from there might feel pretty resourced in that way, and then be able to ripple out into a more global, compassionate sort of lens. And so all of these are wonderful places to be. And I really hope, and I think that this series offers all of that for wherever you are in your space and within your capacity to hold compassion for yourself, or possibly for more than yourself.
Yeah, I'm going to do like the hard sales pitch on that now, because it's much easier for me to do than, when you have to talk about this for your own stuff that you're offering. I'm going to tell everyone and I think it's absolutely incredible, the amount of value that people get for this, because it's not just a 6-week kind of like course once a week. That's the foundation of it. Yes. So it starts on the 10th of March. Every Wednesday evening from 7 to 8 in the evening. That's Lisbon, London time. It would be 8 o'clock start in Central Europe. But not only that, so you get this 1-hour live online class per week, plus the recording of that. So anyone who might have to miss one of the sessions, you can catch up on replay, but you can also go back to them again and again, and you have lifelong access to them. In addition, however, you get access to the Healing Motion community and special discounts on other online community classes and private sessions with Kirsten. You are automatically enrolled in Healing Motion's free online community yoga offering with lifelong access to the recordings, Dawning Light, on March the 19th. You get 1 free month of Healing Motion's monthly subscription service, Embodied Strength, launching in March. And that features practices that assist in reducing chronic pain and stress. So maybe that's something that you are also interested in to check out. You have personal support from Kirsten Baima throughout the course. There will be a discussion board to connect with the community and the other participants during the course. And each week you'll have additional resources, like some other videos or articles or practices, all relating to the topic of the course. So this is pretty amazing. And altogether, your investment is €50, which is absolutely amazing for what you're getting there. So go ahead and sign up. I mean, like, why wouldn't you? That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. And I guess that was also kind of like a way of making work more accessible and sustainable to just give people access to all of these wonderful offerings, so that, in a way, it's not like, okay, you kind of just do this class, but then you're kind of left behind afterwards with, okay, but what do I do now?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're actually getting so much more. There is a continued path with it. There are other programs, there are other workshops, there are ways to deepen your understanding and your practice, and they have access to you and support. And I think that's really important, especially during this online stuff. A lot of this, and that's fair enough. Obviously, some people really need to do things in their own time on replay and as and when it fits them. But there's also this opportunity to connect with the community through the platform and have real life, actual, meaningful connection, which, the title of the series is Connecting.
It's in there.
It's right in there, right? So I think that's just absolutely wonderful. So, if you're interested, go ahead, sign up. It's either on the Little Yoga Space website, or you can jump to healingmotion.org straight away, and you'll find it just there on Kirsten's beautiful homepage. It starts on March the 10th. So that's a week today. You've got 1 week to sign up. Yeah. Once more, connecting to compassion. So wonderful, the work that you do. Thank you for your time. If anybody still has any questions, we'll be here for like 1 or 2 more minutes. So get your questions in quick, drop them into the comments below. Or if you comment afterwards on replay, then we'll see it obviously as well, and we'll get back to you. It might be that you have a personal question about the situation that you are finding yourself in right now, and you want to know if this is really like for you, if this course would be resonating, and Kirsten will be very happy to give you a very honest answer on that, because I think it's also important to us in that what we're offering is like that it's the right thing for you right now, and that you don't join if maybe it's just not the right time for you to do a certain type of program.
And you have so many different offerings with Little Yoga Space, like if this isn't the right one, I'm sure there's definitely one in there that it might be the fit.
We try. Yeah. Anything really important that I did not ask you, but that you would love to say or share?
I don't think so. I just want to thank you again for this collaborative, effort and work that we continue to do. And thank you so much for supporting, this series. Like I said, it's one of our first series, but I think it's definitely my favorite. So it's a wonderful, wonderful way to maybe start your connection with healing motion, or start your connection with legacy motion in a grander way, or continue your connection with Little Yoga Space. And so that's really what we're trying to do is continue to find these ways to keep this community robust and healthy and, safe, relative safety for all of us. And by community, I mean humans. The human experience and community in that.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for talking with me, for your time, for sharing your wonderful work. And well, I'll be seeing you again tomorrow, because we have a whole different live Facebook chat.
I know.
So we're definitely loving this too much. Huh? I have no idea. I can't remember now what time it is, but that we said that we're going to do. I think also 3 o'clock tomorrow. So if you want to hear us chat again, Tiago will join us tomorrow, and then we'll be at 3 o'clock again, and we're going to be talking a little bit more about the Awakening Resiliency program that we're running together, and the spring retreat that we have planned for April. Not still quite sure whether we're able to go ahead with that just yet, depending on the kind of easing of the restrictions. We're crossing all fingers and toes, but we have a backup plan in place for that. So, it's definitely going to happen in one way or another, to actually connect in real person again. So, retreat in Portugal, which will be amazing. So if you want to know a little bit more about our work that we do there, that is going to be a talk tomorrow at 3 o'clock.
Yes.
Together with Tiago. So I'll see you then.
Perfect. Sounds like a plan. Sounds like a date. All right. Thanks a lot, Kat.
Take care.
Bye for now. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.